The message came on a Tuesday morning. Dinner at Rosetta's, 6:30 p.m. Big news to share. My brother sent it to our family chat group, where I'm usually forgotten. The word big stood out to me. It felt important, like they really wanted me there. I went because, despite everything, they're still my family. Right? I remember driving to the restaurant that evening. The sun was setting, making long shadows across the parking lot. I took a deep breath before getting out of my car. I straightened my firefighter uniform. I hadn't had time to change. My shift ran late, and I rushed over without eating anything. Part of me was excited. Maybe things were changing. Maybe this time I'd be included. When I walked into the restaurant, I could already hear laughter. I turned a corner into the private room and stopped short. There they all were, my brother Jake smiling and talking loudly, my mom Lisa nodding along, my dad Frank checking his phone, and my older sister Rachel in the center of it all, glowing like always. Even my grandmother Martha was there, sitting quietly at the end of the table. They were all there, except no one had saved me a seat. But that wasn't what hit me first. My eyes landed on a big blue banner stretched across the back wall. Congratulations to our real son. Bold letters, sparkling and loud. It felt like a slap. I stood there trying to understand. No one seemed surprised to see me. No one apologized. My mom just raised her glass and said, "Oh good, you made it. We've already started." Rachel looked me up and down and smirked. "Couldn't change out of your work clothes." I nodded stiffly and forced a smile. But off work late. There was a strange silence after that. Not awkward, but comfortable for them. Like I was the guest, not their son. Like this celebration wasn't for me at all. A waiter brought over a spare chair. No one moved to make room. I sat there quietly, trying to make myself smaller. That's when my mom lifted her glass again. To Jake, she said with a proud smile, "Our real son. We finally have something to celebrate." Everyone clinked glasses except me. I stared at the tablecloth, wondering if I'd heard wrong. Real son. Jake laughed. "I'll explain," he said, like he was telling a joke. He leaned in excitedly. "I did one of those DNA tests. Turns out I'm not adopted. I'm actually 100% mom and dad's biological child. They thought they had me through adoption, but I'm genetically theirs." People cheered like it was a birthday party. Dad wiped away a tear. Mom put her hand over her heart. I tried to keep my voice steady. "So what does that mean about me?" The table got quiet for a second. Then Lisa gave a small shrug. "Well, honey, you were from the same adoption agency. It was complicated. We were young. Mixed-ups happen." Laughter rose again, louder this time. I sat there feeling cold in a room full of warmth that wasn't meant for me. Then something unexpected happened. The waiter came back. He walked straight to me, not anyone else, and handed me a small sealed envelope. "The owner asked me to give this to you," he said quietly. Everyone turned to look. I stared at the envelope. My name, Daniel, was handwritten on the front. Just my name. In that moment, everything shifted. I wasn't born into this family, at least not in the normal way. Growing up, no one ever said anything different. My parents, Lisa and Frank, always seemed distant, but they called me their son. They gave me their last name. I called them Mom and Dad. They fed me, clothed me, sent me to school. From the outside, we looked like any regular middle-class family. But inside our house, something was always missing. Something I could never name out loud. Jake, my younger brother, was everything they wanted. From when he could first walk, he was the center of every conversation, every holiday, every picture on the wall. He was their golden boy. Athletic, charming, got good grades without trying. And me? I was the one who remembered to take out the trash. The one who sat in the back seat during road trips so Jake could have the window. The one who always bought my own birthday cake because Mom ran out of time. I don't remember the last time either of them said they were proud of me. Not when I graduated top of my class. Not when I saved a family from a burning apartment. Not even when I was honored by the fire department for bravery. But I didn't complain. I thought maybe that's just how families worked. Maybe love didn't always look like hugs or praise. Maybe being responsible meant you didn't get attention. Despite all the little hurts, I stayed close. I called on birthdays. I drove them to appointments. I showed up at Christmas with gifts even when no one thought to get me anything. I never missed a family dinner because deep down, I kept hoping this time would be different. That's why when the message came about dinner at Rosetta's, I told myself, maybe they're finally going to see me. Maybe this big news was something we could all share. Maybe I'd finally be part of the celebration, not just watching from the side. I was tired that day, physically and emotionally. 12 hours fighting a warehouse fire, one person I couldn't save. But I didn't cancel. I didn't want to be the one who didn't show up. I'd gotten used to being reliable, even when it hurt. I remember putting on fresh deodorant in my locker, trying to look presentable. I told myself, don't overthink it. Go in, smile. Maybe this time will be different. But nothing could have prepared me for that banner. Congrats to our real son. It wasn't just a party. It was a statement. A line drawn in glitter between who belonged and who didn't. And the way they looked at me when I asked what it meant about me, like I was making things uncomfortable, like I was overreacting to something they thought was harmless. It told me everything I needed to know. Still, I didn't leave right away. I sat in that chair with my hands in my lap and my heart beating too fast. I waited for anyone, to notice the pain on my face. To ask if I was okay. No one did. And then the envelope came. The waiter placed it down gently, like it was something important. The outside was simple, just my name in black ink. Daniel. I hadn't seen my name written like that in years. Not in handwriting. Not like it mattered. That's when I knew this wasn't part of their plan. This wasn't something they arranged. This was something different. Someone knew I'd need this moment, that I'd need the truth. And somehow they made sure it found me. My hands shook as I picked it up. I didn't know yet, but what was inside that envelope would change everything I thought I knew. Not just about that dinner, but about my entire life. I didn't open it right away. I held it like something fragile that could either save me or break me completely. The paper was thick, almost old-fashioned. The handwriting was sharp and careful. Someone had taken their time. Someone had wanted this to reach me. I couldn't open it there, not while I was surrounded by people pretending I didn't exist. I slipped it into my jacket pocket and looked up. The conversation had moved on without me. Jake was now talking about his DNA test like it was the most exciting story ever told. I honestly just did it for fun, he said, swirling his wine glass. But when I got the results, I was shocked. Apparently, I'm 100% their biological child. No adoption, no mix-up. Just me, the real deal. Everyone laughed again. Even Grandma Martha nodded, though I noticed she wasn't smiling with her eyes. I finally found my voice and asked quietly, so what does that mean about me? For a second, no one said anything. Dad looked at the wall like he was trying to remember a dentist appointment. Mom shifted in her seat and gave a practiced smile. Well, she said, we used the adoption agency back then. They didn't tell you much in those days. We didn't ask too many questions. Jake interrupted. Basically, you were the mix-up. I'm theirs, Daniel. You might be someone else's entirely. He said it with a laugh, like he was telling me I'd ordered the wrong drink. Everyone chuckled along. Except me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to scream. But I sat there completely still, like my body wasn't connected to the room anymore. Mom reached across the table to pour more water. It doesn't really change anything though, she added casually. You're still family. Still family, the way someone says about an old neighbor or the dog they gave away years ago. I felt my throat tighten, my heart pounding. Not fast, but heavy, like it was pulling the rest of me down. No one apologized. No one realized that what they just revealed wasn't a quirky surprise. It was my entire identity being thrown away like a joke. I wasn't just the less favored son. I was the one who didn't even belong. That banner made it clear, our real son. Not both sons, not our family. Just one. One real son. And I wasn't him. Jake was loving every second. He pulled out his phone and started showing pictures of his DNA results like it proved he'd won a prize. My parents leaned in, amazed, hanging on every word. I sat there invisible, shrinking with every sip of my untouched water. At one point, Jake looked at me and said, honestly, this explains a lot. You've always been different. He didn't mean it kindly. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a message from work. Station 12 needs backup tomorrow. Can you cover? Even my job treated me with more respect than my own family. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stood up. I'm going to step outside for some air, I said. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. My chair scraped softly against the floor, and their conversation continued without missing a beat. I stepped into the cool night air, pulled the envelope from my jacket, and stared at it under the streetlight. I was shaking, not just from the cold, but from realizing I had never truly been part of that table. Not when I was 5, not when I was 15, not tonight. And somewhere inside this envelope, I had a feeling I was about to find out why. I stood outside that restaurant feeling like the ground wasn't solid anymore. The laughter from inside kept floating through the window. The clinking of glasses, familiar voices, stories told for the 100th time. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was just another family dinner. But something had broken open inside me, and all I could hear was the sound of paper unfolding in my hands. The envelope was warm from how long I'd held it. My name, Daniel, still staring back at me like it belonged to someone else. For a second, I thought about not reading it. Maybe it would be easier to walk away and just live with not knowing. But I'd spent most of my life doing that, quietly accepting things that didn't make sense, excusing the cold looks, pretending their love was enough. I was done pretending. I tore open the seal. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. The handwriting stopped me cold, slanted, careful print. Familiar in a way I couldn't place at first. Then it hit me, Grandma Martha. I hadn't seen her handwriting since I was a child, back when she used to mail me birthday cards with $5 bills tucked inside. She'd stopped years ago, or maybe someone had made her stop. I opened the letter. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means they finally told you. Or maybe they told you just enough to hurt you, not enough to explain. I've waited years for this moment. There's something I've needed to say for a long time, but I was asked not to. I kept that promise until now. You were never supposed to end up with them. Your father, your real father, was my son, Michael. He died in a house fire when you were just a baby. He was a firefighter, just like you chose to become. No one talks about him anymore. They buried his memory to protect themselves, not you. I felt my knees give out. I sat down on the stone bench near the sidewalk. The letter trembled in my hands. Michael. My father had a name I'd never heard, a name they'd never once spoken. After the fire, Lisa stepped in. She offered to take you in. She said it was the only way to keep you safe and cared for. At the time, I believed her. She was my daughter-in-law. I wanted to trust her. But the truth is, she didn't take you out of love. She took you out of guilt and obligation. She didn't want to raise her husband's brother's child. She wanted to move on. I tried, Daniel. I tried to keep you close. But Lisa didn't want me involved. She said I confused things. She said it was better for you if you just moved forward. I remembered how Grandma Martha used to pull me aside at family gatherings and whisper things like, "You've got courage like your father, or you have his eyes, you know." I thought she meant Frank. Now I knew she hadn't. I kept Michael's things. Letters, photos, medals. I have one of him holding you at the hospital, smiling so wide. You were his world. You still are. Come see me tonight. I'm still here. I'll tell you everything. Love, Grandma Martha. The letter slipped from my fingers, landing softly in my lap. My chest felt like it was caving in and expanding all at once. Every part of me that had been waiting to be chosen, to be included, to be seen, suddenly felt irrelevant. I didn't want to be seen by them anymore. I didn't need to be. I looked up at the restaurant window. My family, the people I thought were mine, were still talking, still celebrating, still living in the center of their own story where I had never truly belonged. They hadn't lost anything tonight, but I had found something. A thread of truth. A name. A father. A grandmother who had never given up on me. A family I had never been told about. One that might have actually loved me the way I'd always hoped for. I stood up. This time I didn't hesitate. I walked straight to my car, hands steady now. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't owe them that. They had 28 years to tell me the truth, and they chose silence. But someone else had chosen love, and she was waiting for me. The drive to Grandma Martha's house felt longer than it was. Only 15 minutes from the restaurant, but every red light felt endless. My fingers gripped the steering wheel too tight. My thoughts raced faster than my heart. I was shaking, not from fear, but from the pull of something I had never felt before. Truth. I didn't know what I'd find when I got there. I just knew I had to go. When I pulled into the driveway, her porch light was already on. She was sitting on the front steps, just like when I was little. Back then, I'd sit beside her and ask questions about everything. I'd thought of her as the only adult who really listened to me. Now I knew why. She stood up slowly when she saw me. No words at first. She just opened her arms, and I walked into them like I was coming home. She held me longer than I expected, longer than anyone had in years. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "I'm so sorry you had to find out like that." I nodded, too choked up to answer. She led me inside, and everything smelled like cinnamon and old memories. The living room hadn't changed in decades. The same crocheted blankets, the same lamp with a leaning shade. But now it felt different, like it belonged to me somehow. On the coffee table sat a small wooden box. She opened it slowly as if it were precious. Inside were photos, stacked carefully. Some firefighter badges. A folded flag. "Your father earned these," she said. "He saved 18 people during his career. He used to say being a firefighter wasn't a job. It was a calling. When you joined the department, I knew. I knew he was still with you somehow." She handed me a photograph. It was of a young man in a firefighter uniform, holding a baby. His face was kind, strong, proud. "That's Michael," she said. "Your father." The room blurred around me. I had never seen him before, but I knew him. I looked at him the way a child looks in a mirror for the first time and finally sees their own face clearly. I saw myself in his eyes, his jaw, the way he held me like I was everything that mattered. That picture did something no DNA test or family dinner ever could. It made me feel real. My voice trembled. Why didn't they tell me? Martha sat down beside me. They didn't want to remember what they lost. Lisa was Michael's brother's wife. After both men died, Michael in the fire, Frank in the accident the next year, she remarried. The new Frank wanted a fresh start. He adopted Jake when they got married. But you reminded them of what came before. So they just pushed that part away. But I always knew, she continued, I couldn't let Michael's son vanish. So I stayed close as they'd let me. And I waited for the day you'd come to me. She pulled out a faded envelope marked for Daniel, when he's ready. It was my father's handwriting. I opened it slowly, hands shaking, heart open. My son Daniel. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay long enough to raise you, and I'm so sorry for that. But I need you to know something no one can ever take away. You were wanted. You were loved. You are brave. I saw it in you from your first day. If anyone ever makes you feel small, it's because they don't understand how big your heart is. Don't let them dim your light. You are my son, and I am with you. Always. Dad. Tears spilled freely, not from sadness, but from recognition. For the first time in my life, I wasn't questioning if I mattered. I knew I did. And I knew who I was. I wasn't the extra son. I wasn't a burden. I wasn't the boy who had to earn his place. I was Michael Lambert's son. Loved. Protected. Chosen. I looked at Grandma Martha and smiled through tears. I want to know everything. She smiled back. Then let's begin. I stayed at Grandma Martha's that night. We talked until nearly dawn. She showed me more photos, more letters, pieces of a life I'd been living on the edge of without knowing. I learned that my father had been a station captain, that he loved classical music and played guitar, that he used to read me stories every night, doing all the different voices, that he called me Danny Boy and sang it as a lullaby. Every story I heard felt like oxygen after years of not being able to breathe deeply. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going back to that house. Not to Lisa's thin smiles or Frank's polite distance. Not to Jake's mockery. Not to that dining room table where love came with conditions. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done waiting for them to change. Done trying to fit into a space that was never built for me. Instead, I chose myself. A few weeks later, I filed paperwork to legally change my name. Daniel Michael Lambert. The first time I said it aloud at the courthouse, I felt something settle inside me, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. My real name. My father's name. My truth. I moved into Martha's spare room temporarily. The walls are covered with photos of my father with his firefighter crew. His old helmet sits on a shelf. I've started learning guitar, simple songs that feel familiar somehow. Music feels like a language we share across time. Through it all, I kept working. Firefighting doesn't stop even when your world changes. But I work differently now. I smile more. I listen better. I started mentoring new recruits. I carry a picture of Michael in my helmet. Not because I need others to see it, but because I finally want to see him with me. I don't talk to Lisa or Frank anymore. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Jake sent a few messages. One said, "I didn't know it would hurt you like that." I never responded. Letting them back in would be like handing someone a match after I've rebuilt my house. I'm done being burned for the comfort of others. What I've learned is this: family isn't something you're born into, it's something you build. It's who shows up when everything falls apart. It's who tells the truth when it's hard. It's who leaves the light on and waits for you, even when everyone else has forgotten you exist. I thought I was nobody for so long, but I was somebody's son. I was loved by a father who never got to see me grow up but gave me everything he could while he was here. I was protected by a grandmother who waited decades to give me back my own story. And I finally learned how to love myself with that same courage and strength. So here's what I tell anyone who's ever felt like an outsider in their own family: you are not the problem. You are not less because they failed to see your worth. You are not defined by those who couldn't love you right. You are allowed to walk away. And when you do, when you finally choose truth over pretending and real love over going through the motions, you don't lose a family. You find your own.